Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, love, laugh, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Fay on ubnradio.com.
And welcome. You are tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon here at the Sunset Gower Studios.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Okay. Oh, that was what happens when Jarvis, my normal sound engineer, it takes a break and lets the studio owner sit in. Thanks, Tony. But hey, that's okay. That's okay. We're good. Take a breath. And every Tuesday at Naturally High Noon at Universal Broadcasting Network. And then Thursdays on my syndicated and CNBC News Radio channel, KCAA AM 1050 at 7 p.m. for your commute pleasure home. And this is a show about hope and happiness. So there's no gossip, no scandal, no K-words, no Kardashian talk at all. Instead, we want to focus on what is good and right and wonderful with life and how you can be happy 88% of the time. And first, my peace shout out to several people. First, from CarMax this week, Tony and Rick. Peace in and peace out. Thank you for your help in trying to replace my beautiful kit Jaguar that has served and very well for 8 years and now is going into retirement. Also, a shout out to all the fabulous people that I got to speak to last week at the Health to Wealth Expo out in Chino, and it was wonderful. I met the mayor and the former mayor that recognized me from Irvine, and a special shout out to the gentleman who made my day. He spent the last 4 years living in China and said that China loves Dr. Marissa. And he was married, so he wasn't doing it to pick me up or anything. So I'm very, very grateful for that. So all of my listeners in China, 你好,谢谢. 你不客气啦. So thank you very, very much for that. And it is June, the second last week in June, and June is Child Awareness Month. So I wanted to focus today on a beautiful subset of our children, which is our formerly known as special needs, and we're going to talk about the term atypic with an amazing neuropsychologist, pediatric neuropsychologist that I found through Keely out of Penguin Random House Books. She's published a great book called Not What I Expected: Help and Hope for Parents of Atypical Children. Dr. Rita Eichenstein is a noted psychologist and renowned in the field of child development. She's also the author of a popular blog, Positively Atypical, and an expert in the fields of child development and special education. Dr. Eichenstein maintains a private practice at Cedars-Sinai Medical Towers in LA, who's also a corporate client of mine, yay, where she specializes in child assessment and counseling parents of atypical children. Without further ado, please welcome to my studio, Dr. Rita. Doesn't that feel good? Just take that in. That's what's happening every time you help someone, and I know you help people a lot. Thank you for coming to the studio.
Thank you, Marissa. It's a pleasure.
Yay. So we're going to talk about this fabulous book that I started reading, Not What I Expected, because I know for sure in my listening audience there are many people, if you're not touched yourself with a child with special needs, but you know of someone, because I know of several, and it's a blessing and a challenge, or a challenged blessing. I believe, from what I've seen. And so I wanted you to come on and give us some wisdom and some knowledge and education around this whole field, as well as some strategies for those listeners who are tuning in, looking for ways in which to find more joy and less stress in this particular arena of life. And so also, I wanted to tell you that at 12:30, if you have a question for Dr. Rita, please do call in at 323-284-7826. And if you have a specific question. If not, I'm going to be asking a lot of questions myself. And so the first one is, how prevalent is this whole area of, it seems to me, and it could be my imagination, but there's a rise in diagnoses or identification of different childhood neurological challenges. So I don't even like to call it diseases, but diagnoses around autism for sure is what I've been hearing more of. Enlighten me on that.
Yes, I mean, you're right. The number of diagnosed children is significantly on the rise, and it seems like every day where I check the statistics, the numbers are even higher. So for autism, when I started writing my book, it was like 1 in 110, and then went down to 1 in 88, and now it's even lower, 1 in 63. I frankly don't know where the numbers are coming from, but they're out there. As far as ADHD goes, which is a big one, it's 14% right now, approximately, give or take. These aren't my numbers.
Right.
They're floating around out there. All types of learning disabilities seem to be on the rise. And when you think about it, it's not that these disabilities are actually on the rise, although that is a debatable point.
Right.
So I frequently get asked, what is it? Is
Yes.
it the disability that's on the rise, or is it we just have better ability to understand what we're looking at?
Right.
And so in my experience, I think it's both. I definitely think it's both. But I think the understanding is missing that neurodiversity is part of the human species. We are a species that has a lot of atypicality inherent inside of us. And so none of us are perfect. And the stakes in this society are so high to be perfect, whether it's media-driven or that rush to get into the Ivy League college, or there's so much pressure, wrongly so, on parents to produce that perfect child because somehow they think it will lead the child and the family to success. And so
I
this
love
is
the way you
devastating.
said that. I love the way you said that, because it's so true that it's unnecessary angst, unnecessary discrimination, unnecessary just the BS, the belief system that there's something wrong with you if you don't fit into that, whatever that is, in the educational system, in the upbringing system. And I've believed this. In fact, it keeps coming to me that these children who are atypical are actually gifted in so many other ways, that if we released the stigma or the label, then we could embrace what you're saying, that aberrance is good.
Right.
Right? That
Aberrance
atypic
is
is good. And then there's so much more that we can be open to in life.
That's correct.
Yes.
Not every child is gifted, but every child has a gift.
Wow. Now I know why. They approached me and asked me from the publishers to have you on, and I couldn't find the right time. And then when I picked up your book, and I went to the last chapter, because
good.
yes, which is right up my life alley, around joy. The first parts, and I do want to not skip directly to joy. I want to talk about the reality of having a special needs child, because I have had questions come in already. People, moms who are, how do I deal with? I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be stressed. I don't want to lash out, but I feel like I don't have a choice. The system doesn't support me. The schools don't support me. My child is being ridiculed. I can't do it all. I'm trying to run a job at the same time. I'm not getting family support. Why do I feel like I'm being punished with a special needs child?
Mm-hmm. And you just asked the question that goes through so many parents' minds, but they don't say it out loud because then they feel guilty for not being grateful.
Exactly.
Because, well, after all, he or she is alive and he's cute, and but why do I feel so terrible? What's wrong with me? And mothers in particular are so prone to blame themselves.
Yes.
They are guilt magnets.
And if you've just tuned in, we are talking about an extremely important topic that affects many's hope and happiness, and that is raising children with special needs. And I have Dr. Rita Eichenstein here, a pediatric neuropsychologist, psychologist who's here talking about her book, Not What I Expected. And it's a great guide. And we're talking about strategies right now on how to deal with that very real anger. So what do you say to the moms?
Well, it's not a one-line conversation. It's a process. There's what I started to do when I wrote this book is I actually didn't really plan on writing it. I wanted to look for a book that would help me with the parents that I see because as a pediatric neuropsychologist, I do assessment. I test kids. I'm a diagnostic specialist. I give them the diagnosis. I write these fancy long reports after spending a lot of time with the kids. And then I spend a couple hours with the parents. And somehow that didn't seem to be enough time. And I thought, wow, what happens after they leave my office? What happens after they take the report and say thank you very much and shut the door?
Right.
It was like the mystery behind my door, and I was really curious, how do I follow these people and make sure that they're okay? Because like I care about them. So I said, well, there must be something written about parents. There just must. And to my shock, there is absolutely, or until I wrote my book, nothing that took the parent's perspective on what the parent is going through. And because when a child is born, all the focus is, and that's natural, on the child. The child becomes the most important part of the family dynamic. But that's only 50% of the story.
Right.
If you're not looking at those parents and making sure that they have what it takes to raise this child, well, then that child isn't getting raised the way he or she could be raised.
Right.
And there was nothing that took the parents through their emotional journey. And it's a very emotional journey, finding out that there is something atypical about your child. And I've learned to not be surprised. You know, some parents get really terrible diagnoses and they're plucky and they're going, okay, what can we do? And then there's parents who get a pretty, what I consider to be like a pretty mild diagnosis, maybe a little ADD, and they just fall apart. So it's really unpredictable. But what I do know for sure is that all parents go through an emotional journey. And so I try to put the journey into different phases based on what I've seen and what I've heard with talking to different professionals. And the first one that comes up really fast is denial. And I looked at it from a behavioral evolutionary perspective, which is what is denial. And denial is actually a very healthy response to anything that's traumatic. You shut down until you can self-regulate and come up for air and go, okay, what's next?
Right.
But unfortunately, some people get stuck in a lot of denial for a long time, especially when it comes to your kid.
Right.
Nobody likes a diagnosis.
Right.
And especially parents. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean? He's fine.
Right.
I was just like that. You guys just don't get it. You don't understand our family. You people, you know, or if they come from another country, they're going, oh, this American culture, it's just, you know, doesn't understand how to raise kids. Why, back where I grew up, you know, I get that a lot. And then there's shame and stigma that come from different cultures and different backgrounds that could actually impair a family's standing in their own community if their child has a diagnosis.
Right,
and
right.
yes, it's 2015, but yes, it's still very real. And you have to be really sensitive to this.
Yeah, yeah. I know in the Chinese culture that's very true. You're judged by the health of your children.
Yeah.
And emotional health is almost worse than physical health if there's some damage. It's that, we don't talk about them.
Right.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
we think a lot of thoughts about those parents and what those parents must be doing to their kid.
Right.
And
that they brought it on.
yeah.
Yeah. And which is such a shame. Now, when you it almost sounds like the stages of the Kubler-Ross model, yeah? The
Yeah.
denial. So for those parents who are plucky, right?
Right.
And I'm grateful, and they're alive, and at least I have a child. So that almost might at the beginning stages be somewhat of a denial.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It might.
Positive denial.
Positive denial. Denial comes in all forms.
Right.
But at 3 a.m.,
Mm-hmm.
they wake up in a cold sweat and they're not so plucky.
Yeah, yeah. So for parents who are right now getting a diagnosis, and there's many of them.
Many.
What the one in whatever you were saying, 64, at this very moment.
Or 1 in 5. 1 in 5.
1 in 5
of
for
kids overall are getting are sort of being pointed out as having some sort of area that needs more intervention.
What would you say the first thing for them to do to soothe themselves in self-talk?
Take a deep breath.
I'm a big fan of deep breaths.
And in my book, so I talk about the STOP technique, which is stop, take a look, observe, and proceed. It's a mindfulness-based technique.
Beautiful.
I use it particularly in the anger section because anger seeks a target, and it's true, parents do have a really hard time navigating the system, getting the services they need, figuring out those really confusing reports. And some of these kids, it's not that clear. It's not that clear what's amiss or how to nail it. Kids don't fit into neat little boxes.
Right.
They're not like eggs that fit into the egg crate just perfectly. They have their quirks.
Yeah.
And it can be flummoxing and confusing for parents. Like, how do I place this child in my view of, is he going to be okay? Am I going to be okay? Am I going to be able to handle it? Am I a good enough parent for this kind of child?
Yeah, that's one of the questions that I got was, I can't get over the guilt. I can't handle it, but I when I think of the option of putting them in a home, I get too guilty, and there's no room for that. So I feel like I'm stuck in between the two. So what would you say to someone who's facing that?
It's interesting. I've been asked this one other time in the last 6 months, and it's like, really? I mean, homes are very rare. I mean, it has to be an exceptionally extreme case to consider that kind of intervention. And, the primary thing you look for is the safety of your child, the safety of the other children in the family, and your own physical safety. And those are bottom lines. Those are ground zeros. And if any of those things are threatened, you do what you need to do.
Right. Yeah. In this particular case, they are a threat to both the siblings and to themselves. So that's why they've been given the recommendation to seek more help and out of the home.
Absolutely.
So
you do what you need to do. Denial is a luxury emotion. Guilt is a luxury emotion. When there's physical safety at risk, you don't have the luxury. You have to move into your thinking and reasoning brain, which is your frontal lobe, move away from your emotions and say, let's think clearly here.
Right.
And my book is all about compassion and self-compassion and working through your feelings. But when there's a physical safety issue, turn it off, look rationally, and say, is there a danger that anybody here is going to be hurt? And if so, act. And I also talk a lot about trusting the professionals, which is, I admit, a very questionable, in some cases, it can be very questionable because who are your professionals? But I talk to parents about picking a team, choosing a team that you trust. And there's a lot of choices, but settling on the team and then going with it.
Right. And then following the direction even when you don't agree with
That's
it.
right.
Yeah, because they are the professionals. Now, do you have a special needs child yourself? I was curious about that because of the depth of the book. It feels like you know the feeling.
Well, I have 3 grown children, and each are unique in their own way. They're all pretty wonderful. But I won't lie and say it wasn't challenging to raise them, each in their own wonderful way. But I've worked with so many families over the last 25 years that I feel
you get it.
Yeah, I do.
Your empathy is enough because it does each section. Like you've got one on anger, you know, the anger, blaming the institutions, blaming the doctor, blaming the professionals, and then there's the sadness part, right?
That's
as well.
The depression.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then getting to the end, which is the joy. So in picking a team, what should you be looking for?
That's such a good question.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking that because there's no right answer for everybody. I come from a place where I respect the values of a family that's coming to me. And each family has their own set point of who they're going to feel safe with. Is it somebody from their own religious community or ethnic community? Or if they live an alternative lifestyle, is it someone who's accepting of alternative treatments? So this is very individual. But what I urge people to not do, and it's almost impossible, is to not do the middle of the night internet searching for miracle cures, which I talk about in the bargaining chapter, because no one is more vulnerable emotionally than a parent with an atypical child. And they are willing to believe almost anything.
Right.
And there are many people out there with snake oil and slick marketing websites and new bright little
magic pills, magic bullets.
Magic pills and mini mall shops that just opened with the best, latest neuro who will target all of your child's disorders. And what I tell people are, last time I checked, there is no one thing that targets all disorders. It's impossible.
Right. Well, that's very American, though. We want that. We just want one pill. Yeah. We want to take it once, and it's done, and it's fixed. And it sounds like raising an atypical child is a process, and it there's no quick way. However, I am going to ask you about drugs because I think that I have heard so many people talk about the overuse of drugs for ADHD or all of a sudden, normal, rambunctious, energetic children are being labeled ADHD because their teachers or their parents cannot handle or aren't creative enough to deal with their energy. Now, I just put the moose on the table. I have this expression because I'm originally from Canada instead of saying the elephant in the room. So there's your moose. Carve it up.
All right. Well, luckily for us, I'm not an MD.
Okay.
So I don't have a vested interest in the medication debate. And I'm also probably not the most qualified person to give a medically based opinion. So have that caveat out there, okay? And so I'll go with both sides of the table on this one. And again, it goes back to your values. If you are a family with a child with ADHD has a child whose self-esteem is suffering, that you went to an Ivy League college and expect the same from this child and are incredibly disapproving of his or her inability to get her homework done, getting in the principal's office too often, expecting that 2 hours of homework to be done, put in the backpack by the front door. Well, then
I'm a tiger mom, you know that.
Oh, are you really?
Recovering. I know. I'm listening. Go ahead. Keep going.
Well, first of all, I work both sides of the table. So I say to those parents, I want you on the floor playing with that kid. I want that kid to be jogging with the dog around the block every night. Everyone has a dog these days. Take the dog for a while. Who walks the dog? The maid walks the dog. Excuse me. In the old days, the kids woke up early. Proverbial old days, they walked 3 miles through snow up and down hills to get to the one-room schoolhouse.
Right.
They chopped wood before dawn so their mom could cook dinner. There were chores. There was physical activity. There was also something called playtime. And we don't have playtime anymore.
Right.
And not only is it sad mentally, it's sad from a physical perspective because these kids aren't moving their bodies. And if you think about their first venture out of the hospital at day 1, birth, they're put in car seats, and that's where they're going to be for a long time.
Right.
And so I'm encouraging kids to be standing more at their desks or have a stability ball or make sure you get that playtime in. There are computer program trainings for memory training, and I say to moms, really? You're going to take a kid after school and 2 hours of homework and you're going to stick them in front of a computer for more memory training?
Right.
Does that make any sense to you?
Right.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
Get a ping pong table. Play with your kid and then see what happens. Now, ADHD can be a very pernicious diagnosis, and I diagnose it all the time. And it could be, the medication could be life-changing. I'm just flipping the coin here.
Right.
I have seen the medication have
Work
magnificent results with a lot of kids. And then P.S., when they get into their 20s, they may choose to not take it anymore because it's done. It was like they needed it at a certain phase of their life, and then it's done. So there you go. Controversial for sure.
Great. Thanks for that take on it. I agree with. I'm not saying that it doesn't help some, but I do believe that these days it is overprescribed. And I think at the first sign of, it's not perfect, that perfectionism, we go too quickly to that. But I love your balance tools, getting to that middle between the parent's responsibility and the child's responsibility. And if you've just tuned in to take my advice, I'm not using it. Get Balance with Dr. Marissa. This week we are focusing on children because June is Child Awareness Month, and Dr. Rita Eichenstein has been my guest here, the author of Not What I Expected, Help and Hope for Parents of Atypical Children. And I wanted also to do a quick acknowledgement and thank you so much to my staff interpreter today, Darcy French Meyerson, who is a beautiful agape sister, love burrito, who is here to reach the special series we have called Radio for Our Deaf Community, which, thanks to the cameras in the studio this past year, have allowed us to reach another population. And I'm sure in that population there are parents also faced with atypical children, special needs. And so thank you, Darcy Meyerson, French Meyerson, for interpreting today. And it is that time to also thank the sponsors who make this show possible. And if you would like to sponsor this show, all you need to do is reach out to me or my assistant producer, Jarvis Essex, and we'll give you information on very affordable rates. And since June is the marking of my 4th year on the air, we're doing specials. So very affordable rates if you want to promote yourself on the show. We'll be back in 2. Peace in and peace out.
Are you thirsty for books that will fill your soul with wisdom, joy, and inspiration? Then take a refreshing and nourishing drink at Alice's Quiet Mind Bookstore, located in the heart of the Agape International Spiritual Center in Culver City, which incidentally was recently featured on The Today Show. From aromatic soy candles to best-selling authors like Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith and a whole host of other visionaries, Alice's Quiet Mind bookstore has everything to soothe your body, spirit, and soul. For more info and directions, visit agapelive.com today.
Do you suffer from neck or back pain? Then it's time for Casilia. Casilia is an affordable yet easy-to-use tool that is carefully engineered for wellness. Just 20 minutes a day can treat pinched nerves, back pain, neck pain, and much more. The manufacturers of Casilia are so confident that it works, it comes with a 30-day, 100% money-back guarantee. You have nothing to lose but your pain and stiffness. Casilia is personally endorsed by Dr. Marissa. To learn more, visit www.casilia.com today. That's KACELIA.com.
And welcome back. You are tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa. And we are celebrating Children Awareness Month today with my fabulous guest here, who I'm going to give the Dr. Marissa's Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award for her work in helping parents and families and children in special needs situations. So if we could have a little bit more applause. Because I think it's wonderful what you're doing and just helping us understand how to cope better. Not just cope, but thrive is what I read in the book, and I really like that.
That's right.
Yes. So what do I say to well-meaning people, if you are a parent of a special needs child or an atypic child? What do you say to well-meaning people who say, I'm so sorry that you have to go through this? And it's, I know people mean well when they say that, but in the way they express that, it sounds, you know, I'm sorry you're saddled with, you know, something undesirable, which is totally not true. How do you respond to that?
It's a very difficult question on both ends. First of all, well-meaning people don't know what to say. And so the first response is to the well-meaning people, which would be to say, is there anything I can do to help out? Offer something. Offer a carpool. Bring over a quiche. Bring over a dinner. Offer to wash some dishes. Can I hang out with you? What can I do? Let me be your friend. How does this work for you? And so instead of the I'm so sorry, it's let me join you, because as I say, it takes an army to raise an atypical child. And if your friends want to be part of the army, great. If they just want to feel sorry for you, adios. You know, that you don't need that.
Great.
So
Bullies at school. So bullies of atypical children.
Yep.
Yes. How does a parent deal with that besides wanting to go in and throttle them?
Well, again, this is a group conversation. Not everybody's guilty, but everybody's responsible. And make it a group conversation. Understand that diversity is part of the human experience, and accustom kids to differences. And I've seen schools that have really taken that extra mile to talk about differences and be very natural, have natural, normal conversations about it in the classroom. That is much less likely to happen.
Right. Yeah. I'm really grateful and blessed to have my kids go through the Los Alamitos School District. And I know they had a lot of different, they have conflict managers and bully busters. And, my daughter was chosen, my younger one, to be a manager in elementary school, which was nice. And, I was asked to come and speak on valuing diversity, because it's one of the areas that I work in. So, yeah, it does help. And I think, I have a lot of hope for our newest generation, because I think they're much more cognizant and much less Confederate flag waving than our past, which is a wonderful thing. It's a good genetic pool. This one doesn't need a lifeguard as much as the last one did. Okay, I did have a question come in on my phone. What resources can parents use that don't cost an arm and a leg?
Great question. Okay, so here is where it's an important announcement that your child is legally entitled to free services of whatever they need. Now, if it's not regional center, it is the school system. Now, I admit those systems are designed to be very frustrating and difficult to navigate, but these services do exist, and I want to point out one very important one, which is called respite care, the recognition that you are entitled to a babysitter. Believe it or not, it could just be 30 minutes a month. I don't know what your district will offer you, but there are benefits that you may not know about. And so I would urge parents to find advocates. They can Google special needs advocates in their town. Go to support groups. Support groups are free. And it's a very important place to find information from other parents and the people who are leading the support groups. Now, I work with some parents whose child may have something pretty unique and rare, like a unusual genetic disorder.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be a support group that matches exactly what your kid has.
Right.
Go to just about anything. And even if you think you're not a group person, get off your horse. Just go. Just go.
Right.
Try it once.
Right.
And you'll be surprised how nourishing that is and how emotionally deeply satisfying and validating it is just to hear other people who are going through similar issues.
Yes.
And you don't have to do this alone.
Right. I think that is a critical choice. There's BS belief systems that work for you, and there's ones that don't. And thinking that you've done something wrong as a parent and that's why you're being punished, that's a belief system you need to give up, because it's not true. It's a lie. The belief system that you're the only one going through this is also a lie. That there's many parents who are going through this, and many parents who have figured out before you what works and what doesn't work. And the only way you're going to get that is by becoming part of a group or an organization that has those resources.
Community. Join the human race. Become part of whatever's out there for you, because it's there for you. You are not alone.
Yes.
It's very common for parents to feel isolated, ashamed, stigmatized. No one knows what I'm going through. Those are feelings of depression. And one of the best cures for depression is social connection.
Right.
So force yourself up and out and find the group and visit a few and see what you can do. And if you can't find, make it yourself.
Beautiful. So I had another Facebook message, someone who is too shy to call in. If you're not too shy to call in, it's 323-284-7826. And they said they are thanking you, Darcy, too, for the work that you're doing right now, interpreting. And they also reminded me to let people know we have a whole series for our deaf community of these programming on the air. If you go to my YouTube channel, Dr. Marissa, you'll find that whole playlist. So please do visit that, because we have lots of great people. Nick Yaris is on there, who went through, he was the 140th person exonerated out of death row, and that is, I had an interpreter come in. So there's plenty. Rick O'Barry from the Cove, so please do. So thank you, Sherry, for pointing that out to me to let people on the air know. But her question was, what are other common misconceptions about special needs children? And I think that speaks to another reason that my first time I was given the book, it was called Special Needs, and then the title now is changed to Help and Hope for Parents of Atypical Children. So what misconceptions are people suffering or need to let go of with regards to this population of children?
Right. So when parents hear that a child might be, there's some older terms that were used. Handicapped was one. Special needs is still out there. But when you hear it, you think, oh my God, it's a kid in a wheelchair. It's a kid that needs help going to the bathroom. It's a kid that maybe can't talk. That is intellectually disabled, that's going to need all kinds of things. And, when you go past the fear, these are absolutely beautiful human beings. And to say that they have special needs, special has become, especially with the teen population, has become sort of a negative, like, oh, that was special.
Right.
And so I really don't feel that the kids that I see or work with deserve a label special needs. I see a lot of kids with dyslexia who are uncommonly bright, exceptional.
Rain Man.
Well, no, Rain Man's not dyslexia,
Oh, okay.
actually. Okay, dyslexia
But
is a reading disorder.
But that same where on the surface it looks like there's something wrong with them, but when you get over yourself, you can see all the unique, fabulous gifts that they have. That's what I meant.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Although you unintentionally struck fear into the heart of people who are listening when you said Rain Man, because
Oh, really?
the majority of kids aren't like Rain Man. It was a wonderful movie, and it really brought a lot of light and knowledge to the field of autism, but it was very much more extreme than the types of kids with diagnoses. For the most part, I mean, we still have that type. And yes, and they are, in their own way, quite gifted.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you on the other misconceptions and terms.
Yeah,
terms.
misconceptions. So you might think these kids are dumb, that you might have to talk louder or slower when you talk to them, or act, or there's things you can't say, or and these kids are so bright. They're so bright, and they completely understand. They know where it's at. And when I see kids that don't know where it's at, I make sure to explain it to them, because there's a level of what I call demystification where it's essential, not when they're little, but at a certain age. And on my blog, I've talked about it, when to have the talk with your child. But at some point, it's essential to explain to your child exactly what's going on. What are they struggling with? Was there a name for it? What are we going to do? Because that child is going to go into high school and college, and they're going to have to advocate for themselves.
Right.
And say, I have dyslexia. That means that I need a reader for my exams that I take, or I need someone to take notes for me in college. And I've got some really bright dyslexics that are going on into graduate school and beyond. And nothing can hold you back. There's accommodations and interventions for all kinds of disorders.
Beautiful.
So parents need to hear that. There is a wonderful road ahead of you.
Yes.
It doesn't just stop at age 6 or 7 with a diagnosis. It goes on, and it's a wonderful road. And these kids can do anything they put their mind to.
Beautiful. I love that. Love that. That expression is something every time I see a child. Atypical or typical. I think we're all atypical, by the way. Yes, that's all of us. Is you can accomplish anything that you put your mind and heart to. I promise. Anything. And if every child felt that way and knew that for sure, then this whole bullying and belittling and all of that would be a thing of the past. Wouldn't that be awesome?
It would be awesome. But I also would like to have kids build their resilience, that just because you were bullied doesn't mean that you're going to be permanently traumatized, or that this is going to affect you for the rest of your life. So let's flip it around. I like to flip things around and look at the other side and say, okay, this happened. We're going to take care of it. But now it's time to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and let's make your life fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it is easy to let those negative experiences marinate or pickle you into inactivity or an anger. I did have someone ask, why is it that it seems like people with special needs seem angry, when they ask for what they want? And that, that's a moose on the table question. If you've spent your entire life having to fight for what you need, then maybe it's asking you to be a little more compassionate around what, how can I help them, as you started with, instead of criticizing them for what they're going through.
Yeah, right. Sounds
Yeah.
like a knee-jerk stereotype to me.
Yeah.
It's not been my experience that people with special needs are angry.
Yeah. Well, you're a little biased,
I'm totally biased.
which is a good thing. We need you to be biased. Yes. So what would be, I would love to keep going, but we are at the edge of time. But just that one thing you said about when to sit down and have a talk with your child about their beautiful, special, not special, their gifts.
Their brain,
yes,
their brain works.
how their brain works.
Right.
Around the age of...
It depends.
It depends. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, you're not going to, I can't
Yeah,
get
yeah,
pinned down
yeah.
on that one.
That's
It's so
okay.
individual.
Pick up the book. And this is Not What I Expected, Help and Hope for Parents of Atypical Children. It is published by Penguin. It is actually Perigee Penguin, and you can get it anywhere and everywhere. I went and looked, Amazon, any kind of online, probably on your website too. Do you have a link there yet?
Yes.
Oh, yes. And your website is?
drritaeichenstein.com, or my blog is Positively Atypical. By
That sounds
Dr.
like a
Rita
great
Eichenstein.
resource right there to start your day. Positively Atypical. I think that's going to be my middle name soon. And one more big thank you so much for being here at studio. I hope you have enjoyed all of our information as much as I have. And we are at the end of the show called The Balance Bar, where I let you know, first of all, what the Asian Oprah giveaway is today, and that is a copy of this wonderful book. So if you are the first one right now to go to my Facebook page and like Dr. Marissa, you will get a signed copy of this fabulous book by Dr. Rita Eichenstein. And what else can I tell you? The 21-day fast from complaining with Dr. Marissa is now just completing its 4th year. We are off and dark until the 1st of July when we start the fast all over again for the 5th year. And I am working on making it into a game so there's more people interested in not complaining, and all those who are competitive like me can challenge someone in your life to see how many days in a row you can go without complaining. So go to my GoFundMe.com /HRAXLO.com, AXLO.com, and donate there, and that would be fabulous so I can bring the game to you in the 5th year. Also, please hold the date August 8th for my balance retreat on the beach. Yes, we go from Sedona in the spring to the beach in the summer. If you would like to learn balance Tai Chi Gong, the moving meditation promoting inner peace, one breath at a time, then please do go to my website to find out. There'll be an event on Facebook. But just for now, hold the date August the 8th. And that is it for today's version of Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Next week, we are into our last week of the month. That time, the Marvin Gaye time of the month, with Sexual Healing with Dr. Marissa, the new Asian Dr. Ruth, and we will be having filmmaker Paul Ganocchio, who is the documentary filmmaker, Courage to Love, the first documentary about sexual addiction. So we will have him on the air next Tuesday. If you missed this broadcast, please do go to KCAA AM 1050 on Thursday at 7 for the rebroadcast on my CNBC News Radio channel. And for now, that's all about balance. Peace in and peace out. Don't take away the part of me that was